Sam, welcome to the basketball podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chris Oliver.
So fun. Hey, listen, one of the things that's been a great blessing for me is that with my role with the NBA, getting to meet people like yourself and getting to be involved with people like yourself. And honestly, it's been awesome. And let's maybe start just for the listeners. Your intro obviously says you've done a lot of different things in basketball, but talk maybe more specifically about what is your role with Nike right now?
Currently, I'm the Nike Academy Director, where we bring out maybe the top 30 to 50 high school players in the country to our Nike headquarters, and we give them the Nike experience. Nike wanted to graduate just from giving them a brand experience. They wanted to give them a real basketball experience. So they brought me in, and I hire typically only NBA assistant coaches, player development coaches in particular, to help develop these young kids and get them ready for the next level. Most of these kids will be in the NBA in 2 or 3 years, the ones that we work with. So I want to make sure that they're as prepared as possible once they leave the Nike Skills Academy. So I do that right now with Nike, and we extended that. It was not just a week in the summer, where we extended it all year round, where of those 30 to 50 kids, we'll select 7 to 10 of the top players in the country and monitor their development throughout the year. I'll do in-person services where, we do video analysis, statistical analysis, and then we do on-court training with these players to kind of just fine-tune what they need to work on during the season and just continue to monitor development. So that's currently what I'm doing with Nike, among a couple other consulting things as well.
And I love this. And I love coaches hearing this, that it's not just one touch point. It's not just one camp. It's not just one event. It's multiple touch points with these players. And that's a big approach, I know, for you personally, is that it's not just on the court, it's off the court as well. So maybe, okay, let's say you're going to visit one of these elite players and take us through that a little bit in terms of what is some of the pre-work, what happens when you're on the ground with them on and off the court, and then what are some things in terms of follow-up. You mentioned video already and different things, because again, you're not just touching them once, you're doing multiple things that help them develop as a player and a person.
Yeah, the work actually starts before the visit. I do a deep dive into their film. Currently, just doing a lot of the EYBL stuff that they had from the past summer, but I'm very happy that the high school season is about to start. The scholastic season is starting, so I can get some film from their current teams to help pinpoint some places where they need to continue to develop and get better. But so I watch a lot of film on the athlete that I'm going to service, do a video breakdown analysis of the things he needs to work on individually and also in a team setting. I'll give them an NBA comparison, and I'll pull some clips from an NBA player that I think that they should model their game after, or probably already modeling their game after. Then we'll go out, we'll fly and market. I'll go to the kids' market, wherever that is, and then we'll sit down, first things first, and we'll watch film. And I want to pick that kid's brain. I want to know his basketball IQ. Where is he already? And it's funny, Chris, because a lot of these kids don't watch a lot of film. The kids I'm working with are the elite 2027, 2026, 20. These are young kids, so 15, 16, are the oldest kids that I work with. But so you don't expect them to watch a lot of film. That's why I think this service is great. Well, we introduce them into film study. So we'll watch a lot of film with the kid, and I figure out where they are, where's the baseline. I think one of the things with the film piece that was great, speaking of the academy, last year we had Hall of Famer Jason Kidd come in and speak to the kids. And one of the touch points was the film, right? You have to be a student of the game. He talked a lot about three things. You have to, number one, study your opponent so you can be ready for the game. Study yourself so you can see what things you need to improve on, but also study someone. That's where the NBA comparison comes in, that you want to emulate your game after, so you can have a North Star while you're training. It's somewhere you want to get to. So we watch film. I'll see where the kids' IQ is there, and I'll try to help them with a lot of NBA terminology. I don't want to fast forward their development, because anything fast is not good. I just want to, like I said, plant a seed, because a lot of these kids are 2 years removed from the NBA 3 maximum. So I want to plant a seed to where they're going to be in the future.
Before you keep going with kind of what you do on the court with them, then just with that film piece, that's interesting to me, because I do relate to that kids don't watch film the same way that maybe we used to watch film 10 years ago, because they have access to so many short clips rather than watching, say, entire games and different things like that. So maybe take us through that. What are some things you do to educate them about how to watch film better, particularly with a focus on their own development?
No, that's a great question. And like you said, everyone wants these quick 10-second clips or these quick viral 5-second clips. Oh, did you see that? I like the meat potatoes of the video. I want to see when they inbound the ball. Where was the defense? Were they half court? Were they three-quarter court, the free throw line? Where were they? How did you bring the this is small things like that. So I like to paint a broader picture when we're watching film with the kids, and also give them detailed instruction on where they need to be on the court. So there's a lot of spacing stuff that we talk about. There's a lot of time management, time and score. So there's a lot of things that we can help them out with, where it's not just a between crossover pull up. That's a lot of education pieces that we'd like to talk about.
It's great. And now on the court with the players, you take them through some player development workout stuff. What are we doing with that? Are we focused on things that they can continue doing on their own when you're gone? Or are we showing them things that, again, they can work with their coach, with their own trainers? What is the mindset of that?
Well, it's a combination of both. First of all, when we come in there, we want to make sure that the player knows, the coaches know that we're not coming in trying to take over the kids' development or trying to undermine what the coaches have going there. We like the coaches to be in the sessions, watching what we're doing. I like to talk to the coach before I even train the athlete, right? So I'll talk to the high school coach. I'll try to get in touch with the EYBL coach or travel team coach and get it aligned and make sure we're saying the same things. I might approach it differently in the workouts than what they do, or vice versa. But I want to make sure we're aligned first and foremost before we get on the court, because I don't want to undermine anything that the coaches are doing. What we're doing is in addition to, it's not taken away from. So yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing on the court are things that they can absolutely work on. We take some things from the film, Chris, and try to make that translate to the court, whether that's like individual stuff or team concept. I know you're going to talk about concepts here in a minute, but it's individual work to start, and then it's some concept. We build it out where it's warm up, individual skill work, and then concepts. I like to throw in some NBA concepts, but also like to throw in concept. That's why I'm happy the high school season starting right now, where I can see what the teams are running, where I can see the action that the kids are going to be in. So I like to put them in those actions, and I also like to put them in actions where, like you said, conceptually, you just got to play basketball, right? One thing, and I don't want to jump the gun too far, but one thing, coach at Colorado State, that you mentioned earlier in the intro, Nico Medved is one of the best coaches I've ever worked under, tactician at his best. And we always talk about not telling the player what to do, but teaching them how to play, right? So we don't want to just tell you go here. We want to teach them how to play basketball. So we try to add those things into the workouts as well.
I love that part of it. And I know that a big emphasis from you is to get them to be able to understand concepts so they can play conceptually within, again, whatever system they end up playing in. We don't know what system they're going to play in. So they just make them adaptable to wherever they can play. And that's tremendous for that.
Right.
Maybe before we go deeper into that, maybe from your perspective, because again, you've seen it all for quite a while, particularly in the EYBL space and different levels of EYBL. What are some gaps in player development? Because again, I think we focus probably too much on what's wrong, and there's a lot right, clearly, but definitely there are some gaps that you as a director of the academy can help work towards solving some of these problems that may exist. And in your opinion, what are some of the gaps that you can work towards solving?
I think we're attacking that right now, like with the work that you're doing with junior NBA and the NBA level, the work that we're doing in the EYBL. It's developing the coaches, right? A lot of times, coaches, we gatekeep our information because we want to be the ones that are on top. But I'm out of the gatekeeping business and I'm into the service business, where I want to service other coaches. Like you mentioned before, I coach internationally, I coach in the NBA, and I coach NCAA. That's all three levels now. Coaching and working with, I want to give all those experiences back to the coaches. So I think one of the gaps is the coaching, like to make sure. We also have to understand, Chris, that a lot of these coaches aren't full-time coaches. These youth coaches they have jobs, and then they come in and they do their best with the knowledge that they have to transfer that information to the athletes. So I think it's our job now with that to educate the coaches the best that we can, and they also educating us. We know that, but share information to them. They can. The better the coach, the better the player. So I think that's one of the gaps. Just I guess some of the ways that we train. There's gaps there. I think I don't want to go into the whole U.S. European argument. We can't go there because I spent 16 years in Europe. One is not better than the other. Like you said, they do it differently, but it's very individualistic here in the United States, and it's very team oriented over there and in Europe. And I think we need both. We need the individual skill, and we also need the team concept. So make sure we combine. One of the gaps is not combining both, and we need to combine both as much as possible.
It's definitely my experience so far that there's so many people trying to do good for basketball and for individual players and for teams and all that. And I think one of the challenges that exists is that the too many games approach, right? And that would be the one thing, is that on the calendar, literally an elite player could be doing something every weekend unless they have an understanding, and I know this is part of the education piece coming from you guys on down, an understanding of this work to rest and load management and all these different things that exist, particularly around psychological health and well-being as well. And there's very few times where an elite player is not somewhat under a microscope. And one of the safe spaces is the safe space you create for them when you go work out with them. And that's important, isn't it?
It's very important. Let me just touch on the game piece, like a lot of games here in the United States, because again, I'm speaking from experience, not just he said, she said. I actually coached in Europe 6 years, 3 years assistant coach, 3 years head coach. I was associate head coach of the Dutch national team as well. And when I first started coaching, Chris, I can give you our practice schedule. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday, game on Saturday, Sunday off, right? So we had Wednesdays and Sundays off. We practiced, but we were practicing twice a day. So it's not like we weren't getting our work in. So 10 to 12 skill work, 5 to 7 tactical work, right? Again, 10 to 12 technical, 5 to 7 tactical work in the morning. And we were working towards developing the athlete, developing the team, and then working towards that one game. And obviously, once I stayed over there long enough, we started playing 2 games a week, Thursday and Saturday. So the schedule shifted, but that's not 3-4 games a week. It's only 2 games. So you can actually get your development in. But I'm all about balance. We want to work hard and go. I'm about the mental health, Chris. I'm glad you brought that up, and just having a safe space. I'm about balance, because we're not trying, as coaches, as just basketball players in general, I feel like we're not trying to save the world. We're playing basketball. We love it. It's our passion. We take it very serious. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there has to be some kind of balance where we're resting our mind as well as our bodies.
I know just in talking to you a little bit, one of the questions, you could ask a lot of questions from coaches. And one of the questions you could ask from coaches, which connects to this, is about that team psychology piece. Can you go into that a little bit for us? Some of the things that you address when coaches ask you about team psychology?
Oh, absolutely. So it goes back to when I was coaching in Europe, again, in the Netherlands in particular, and we played in a big gym, but we shared spaces, office spaces with different companies. And luckily, next to us, a mental health coach rented the space out, and he worked with all the top soccer players in the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they're top in the top 5 in the world as far as soccer is concerned. And he always walked by my office, wanted to have a conversation, but I was anti-psychology. Don't talk to me. Don't come into my mind. And then one day we had coffee, and he said, "Hey, Sam, I want to talk about your team. I'm telling you right now, I don't know anything about basketball, but I know everything about people." I said, "Okay, let's have a conversation." Marco Hochland, I'm gonna give him a shout out. He and I sat down, and we sat down for many days and many nights, and he actually helped me. I won a championship that year, I think 2015, 2014, 2015, I think, in the Netherlands. And it was, I give credit to him, because he helped me understand my players, right? He helped me understand the psychology around my team. He taught me about the forming, the storming, the norming, and performing. If coaches don't know this, please go look this up. You have to know where your team is in the team building process. And not only basketball coaches, this is companies. This is whenever you have a group or a team together, you have this dynamic, right? You have the forming where the team, let's say preseason team comes together, everyone's happy-go-lucky. Hey, where are you from? Where are you from? Everyone's happy. The team is forming. And then that goes immediately into storming when everyone's jockeying for position. Where's my spot on this team? Where should I be? And that's where coaching comes in, where you have to sit down with each player individually and have that conversation. Once you see where the players are in the preseason, okay, this is your role on the team, right? This is what you need to be doing. You talk to them individually, and then you go in front of the entire team. You talk to the entire team and say, okay, this is what we agreed on. This is your role. And then you get out of the storming phase, and you get into norming, right? Okay, I know my role. I know what coach wants me to do. I'm going to do what I was told to do as a player on this team to make this team win. That's norming. But a lot of teams stay in norming, right? This is normal. But then to get to performing, that's when you become interdependent, where you say, okay, I know what I have to do as a player, but I also know what Craig has to do, and I also know what Jim has to do. So let me help them be successful in their role, and that's when you start getting a team that's really functioning and being successful. I think coaches need to try to understand that concept of where their team is within that process, and then they can, I think, help the team, help guide them. And I don't want to say manipulate in a negative sense, but manipulate where the team goes from there.
I love that. And 5 stages of team development for coaches who want to look into that. It's great stuff, a great way to be able to approach the development of your team, particularly around, I love that part. And I want you to expand on that part around making sure that every player understands the roles of other players, not from the perspective of, okay, this is what's going to happen on the court, but understanding that some players are sacrificing for the greater good. And that's something to acknowledge and understand. And that's a part of any good team.
I think the key word I was just going to write down in case you kept talking, acknowledge, right? I think the key word is acknowledge. You have to communicate, right? You have to communicate to your players. That goes from the individual meeting, that goes to the team meeting, and then you have to continue to communicate consistently, right? And acknowledge, like you said, what the players are sacrificing on the team because every team needs something different from every player. You're not going to be on the same team from middle school to high school to college to pro, wherever that is, international or NBA. You're going to have different teams. You're going to have different coaches. You're going to have different roles, and you got to be willing to be adaptable. You have to be willing to adapt and adjust. And then everyone has to make sure they're communicating that clearly. Teams can have some success. Individuals can have some success.
I love it. And coaches definitely dive deeper into that and that philosophy. And for you, I know another thing you get asked a lot, and this is one of our conversations that we had early on, is about practice planning and just some of the challenges that coaches have around practice planning and maybe adapting to some different approaches. So talk to us about that, because again, the beauty of playing 10 years in Europe is you've been exposed to a lot of different styles.
100%. It's funny how when the NBA, and I'm going to practice plan in a second, when the NBA goes to play over in Europe in the preseason, I remember Russell Westbrook saying once in an interview, "Hey man, these guys just running around, just going here and there, all this action. Like what? My head was spinning. What's going on?" And that's across the board in Europe. Like a lot of coaches are very tactical in Europe. Here in the NBA, with all due respect to the NBA, I love the league. I coached in the league for G League and NBA for 6 years, excuse me, 5 years. I love the league, but it's almost like everyone's doing the same thing. There's a floppy, there's a pistol, there's a loop action, there's a delay action. Everyone's running the same thing. But in Europe, tactically, you don't know what you're going to see the next night, whether you're playing domestically in your own country or you playing in the Euro League. There's going to be some different tactical things. Practice planning, let's rewind. Let's go back to practice planning. I think it's really important for coaches to always say, finish before you start. This is a life lesson. Finish before you start. What do you mean finish before you start? Finish planning your day before you start your day. Finish planning your week before you start your week. Finish planning your month before you start the month. Finish planning your year before you start the year, right? That's called preparation. That goes back to the practice planning. What I used to do is plan the entire week out. First of all, when I was over there, here in America, let's go to college now. It's an unspoken prerequisite to have a master's degree to be a head coach in college. Most do, some don't, but it's kind of unspoken when AD is interviewing the guy and they want to have a master's degree. In Europe, you have to have a coaching diploma, right? I had the BT4, in the Netherlands in particular, it's called a BT4 coaching diploma. So I had to learn how to become a head coach. And they teach you a lot of things, right? They taught me practice planning. They taught me how to talk in timeouts, how to talk at halftime. But back to the practice planning, I had to build a matrix out while I was learning. As a 15-month course, build a matrix out on building out not only practice for the day, for the week, but for the year. And where are you going to peak? When do you want to peak? How's the preseason going to look? Understanding you can push them early where they're going to be sore. You're going to lose some games early, but then once you peak later, that's where you want to be. But practice planning is very, very crucial. Obviously, watching film on your previous practice so you can touch on some things and then the next day. But let's go back to resources. I don't know which coaches I'm speaking to right now, if it's elite coaches, if it's high school coaches, if it's middle school coaches or NBA coaches. If you have the resources to watch film and break down your previous practice and kind of build on that to the next practice, you can have a successful practice week.
I like that. Finish before you start, and a great way to be able to shape your process for the year or for the week or for the day, but also talk to us about being adaptable. Because I know when you go into some of these situations, especially in terms of these most recent, you go into these places with elite development perspective, you start to work with a player and that, okay, they can already do this better than I thought, but they need more of this. So talk a little bit about being adaptable as a coach as well.
Adaptable is crucial, right? It's crucial. You don't want to be a robot. That's where feel comes in as well. That's where experience comes in. A lot of young coaches have their practice plan. They say, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we have to do. But then, like you said, you have to evaluate the athlete, evaluate where they are overall, but also evaluate where they are that day. How can I adapt and adjust the workout to where it's going to be effective on this day? And just adaptability is important in life as well. I remember when I was a head coach, I had this, I told you, I planned the day, I planned the week, I had all this great thing, then knock on the door. Hey, coach, my ankle is, what? Hey, coach, I'm like, oh. So you have to adjust the entire practice plan because you thought you had 12, now you have 11, or you thought you had 10, now you have 7, 8. So now the 5-on-5 comes to a 4-on-4 breakdown, and that 4-on-4 might start as a 3-on-3 part method on one half of the. So you have to be able to adjust and adapt in the team setting, but also in individual workouts as well.
Love that, and all that aspect of everything that you're doing with that. And maybe back to the player development piece, then you're also around a lot of trainers that, again, training in the basketball space has changed basketball really over the last 15, 20 years in America. So talk to us about that and the relationship with trainers and the importance of trainers in developing the modern player on the elite path.
I'm glad you asked this question because I think trainers nowadays get a bad rep because it's so many of them. It's starting to get a little saturated. But guess what? I love it. You know why? You know why? Because the kids aren't in the house playing video games. They're not out doing something. They're in the gym. As long as the ball is bouncing and the shoes are squeaking, let's just start there, right? I love it. Get the kids in the gym. Get the kids playing. Now, what are the trainers teaching the kid? No, that's another thing. But I love that we have a lot of trainers right now. I have seen different levels of training where it's the cone training or it's body on body, or if it's just a guy in the gym by himself working on some stuff. I think it's all necessary depending on the level that you're at. But I love that we have all these trainers now, to be honest. And I love that the kids are in the gym playing basketball. Now the trainers have to make sure they're educated and make sure they're also getting better at their craft, right? Don't like me, I'm always getting better, Chris. I'm always trying to learn something new. I have not arrived. I tell my athletes that all the time. You have not arrived. Even we have the elite in St. Louis, and I tell, hey, you're here, but you still haven't arrived. Or get to the academy, you're here, but you haven't arrived. And you have the mindset that you have never arrived, you can always get better. And I hope the trainers can adopt that mindset as well.
Well, I love that phrasing. I have not arrived. And I've seen you interact with players. And one of the things that stands out is, again, to be a really effective communicator is really difficult with somewhat the level of player you're dealing with, because there's certainly some sensitivity with that, that they feel that in some ways they have arrived. But to be able to balance that with honesty, to be able to be honest with them and still be supportive and show them possibilities is really challenging. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach that?
Oh, you're hitting on some home runs here because that's a real issue nowadays. Because I don't want to again NIL kids like the arrive piece. Like kids have the ones I'm working with, they have NIL deals. They have money. They have no. Do I really need you, or I'm good right now? First and foremost, the communication piece, like what I mentioned earlier, is really important to get to know the player. One thing I failed to mention earlier about watching film with the athletes that I go train, before I even pop open the computer, I say, hey, for example, the last kid we worked with was Mika Murinen from Arizona Campus Prep, who's from Finland, who's an incredible player, by the way. I said,
Tremendous
hey,
player. Tremendous.
yeah, unbelievable. I said, okay, who is Mika? If you're friends with, I just want to know who Mika is and tell me about your family. Tell me, I want to know, and I genuinely want to know, right? I'm not getting anything from this kid. I don't want anything from this kid. I genuinely want to know this kid so I can know where his mindset is, what are his successes, what are his traumas, what concerns him. I honestly, Chris, genuinely want to know this. I think God put me in a position where I can mentor these kids and help these kids. Oh man, I'm so blessed to have this opportunity. So I want to make sure I take advantage of it. So it's about understanding the player. I know you heard the phrase before, players don't care about how much you, they know how much you care. So you got to show them that you really care. And I care about the athletes that I train. I want to get to know them. And once they know that you want to get to know them, that you're getting close, it's about them. It's not about you. Then they'll open up a little more and give you more of themselves rather than say put the barrier up and say, hey, I don't need you. Hey, I'm top in the country. I'm this and that. And there's also the resume. Again, I've coached in Europe, I've coached in NBA. If you can't respect me, with all due respect, I'm going to respect you first. Like you got to earn respect. It's not the old days where you leave with a silver fist. Hey, I did this, so you need to do that. No, let me get to know you first. Let me get to know what buttons to push, and then we can have a real, genuine conversation. And then once you can have that real conversation, then you can teach the kid what needs to be taught, or even coach them hard, depending on how the relationship is.
I know a lot of parents struggle, or a lot of coaches struggle with the parent relationship in a lot of these scenarios as well, because the parents, again, have expectations. They're proud of their son or daughter. Obviously, everyone has worked hard, everyone has contributed to the success of this player. So maybe talk to us a little bit in terms of some advice in dealing with parents and some of the different things that you've done to be able to put the parents on your team, so to speak, in terms of supporting you and supporting the player and supporting the process.
Yeah, that's parallel. It goes the same way with the players as with the parents. I want to get to know the parents too. You know what? Like you said, they put a lot. They make a lot of sacrifices, right? They make a lot of sacrifices for their player, for their child to be in a position that they're in. So I want to know that those sacrifices that they made. I want to know what stock they have in the child, and then get to know them as well and have real, genuine conversations. Again, my conversation, I try to make them extremely genuine, with all due respect. to Nike and the brand, and I love the brand. I'm all for it. I'm not here for the branding piece. I'm not here for the marketing piece. I'm here for the basketball piece, right? I'm here to try to help develop these players. Like going on the days where Nike just sit down and talk about how they love the player and try to get them to come to Nike. And here in present day, it's like, how can we add value to the athlete? How can we add value to the family? And that's just having real conversations about my experiences, things that the kids are going to experience, and just helping them. And like you said, trying to be collaborative and be on the same team.
I love it. And I love Nike's approach in that way with you, especially in terms of having a basketball person that's genuinely there to be able to help them and support them. Because I think what's opened my mind through all this process that I've been a part of too is just how much kind of behind the scenes stuff exists that I didn't know exists. And you mentioned NIL, and certainly I have had a good picture of that, but the extent that it goes down to the lower ages is quite surprising, to be honest. And that's just the new landscape. And it's not good or bad. It's just something we have to adjust to. And that's another piece that you are involved in a lot, is helping people adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're a basketball purist, right? For you, it's about the basketball, right? It's about the
I love the
development piece.
basketball for sure.
It's about the basketball. It's not
Yeah.
about all the other bells and whistles, the apparel, the money, and the setup and all. It's not about that. But that's a part of the world we're in. And when this NIL started creeping in when I was in college basketball, now I said, am I going to be old man Sam and say, oh, back in my day, we didn't, or are you going to, the word you use, adapt? Are you going to adapt and adjust and have your feet on the ground, have your ears to the ground, and see what's needed, what's necessary, and what these kids are dealing with and what they're presented with on a daily basis? And I try to educate myself every day on social media. I'm not a big social media guy, but I try to educate myself on social media because that's where everyone is right now. I try to educate myself on NIL space because it's here and it's very prominent. And then obviously continue to educate myself on the basketball piece as well.
So you are a resource for coaches. And that's one of the things that is obviously something that you value, is that coaches can reach out to you. So give us an idea of kind of what type of things beyond the things we've talked about are coaches interested in maybe nowadays that in the past they weren't as interested in?
Oh, you said, but it's mainly the things that we talked about. It's the team psychology. It's some tactical things. You know, how can I attack a 2-2-1 press? Or how can I attack a 2-3 zone? A lot of teams are playing zone now. There's some tactical things, some off-court things that we talked about, this whole NIL space where everyone's trying to navigate. So Wild West right now, I think sooner or later it's all going to hone in and we'll get a grasp on the NIL space. But it's all encompassing. I get questions from the tactical piece to the off-court piece. And it's like I said, it's good to be here to support all the youth coaches and coach them at every level.
Look, I think in America, we're obsessed with Europe, and in Europe, they're obsessed with America about how we do things. And that's pretty much true, right? I think how many times you and I get asked, oh, what about the Serbian or Spanish or Lithuanian or these different development systems? But you've already referenced it. There's good to both of them. And there's certainly just differences. And you can still have success with both models. But talk to us a little bit about maybe what are some pieces from your experience in Europe that if you could be the ruler of basketball for a day, you could put into effect for all of us?
I'm going to come back to that, but just the European American basketball piece. It's interesting. I have an interesting perspective on that because my kids, I said, I spent 16 years in Europe and I have 3 children. They were all born and raised in Europe. And then when we came back to the United States, I think my oldest was 10 years old, I think like 10, 7, and 5 or something like that. And then when they started school, they were straight A students across the board, all 3 of them when they first started, when we came here to the United States. And I'm like, wait, they weren't like that in Europe. What's going on? So when when the parent teacher conference came, I said, hey, I'm surprised, to be honest, that my kids are excelling like this. He said, we get that a lot with foreign kids. And for me, my kids aren't foreign, my kids are American, but they are foreign. They were born and raised over there, they're American. We get that a lot with foreign kids where they come over and they really try to prove themselves. They try to fit in with the American kids. So they go the extra mile. You see when foreigners come in and open these businesses, they really, really excel because they aren't used to the landscape here. And a light bulb went off and I started comparing that to European basketball and American basketball. I was like, wait a minute. A lot of Europeans, the last 5 MVPs on the NBA were all European or foreign born. I'm like, why is that? Are they doing something better over there than what they're doing here? But actually, and we had this conversation at the Nike Academy amongst the coaches intimately. Actually, Giannis Antetokounmpo came over here. He was 17, 18 years old. He honestly didn't get fully developed in Europe. He got developed in the United States. It was his mindset. Yeah, Jokic, he came over here fairly early. He was young. He got developed in the United States, but it was the mindset. There's some skill stuff that over there that they did in Europe, obviously, that helped him. Same thing with Luka. He's a prodigy. He was 15, 16 playing for Real Madrid. He left Slovenia very early. And so he was really good then. But when did he become great? When he came to the States, because we have the facilities, we have all the resources, we have all these coaches that can get on the court and help develop these players. So I think both are, I mentioned it earlier, I don't want to be a politician here, where both are great. European basketball as a great model. American basketball, I think, has a great model. Europeans can improve in certain areas. Americans can improve in certain areas. But if you really think about it, a lot of these European players that are becoming MVP status athletes in the NBA, they're developed here in the States, as far as their formative years here in the NBA.
The tremendous advantage that we have in America, and I know Canada has benefited from this, is competition. Like Canadian basketball is so good because those Canadians can come across very short distances to play against some of the best competition in the world. And I know that's one of the limitations somewhat of, say, being in Australia. They do a tremendous job with basketball, but getting a diversity of competition is not as easy. And that's one of the things that I think you're painting the picture of is when a Giannis comes over here, he's got some skills, he's got development, but now he's in this amazing pool of players that he gets to compete against and grow against.
Absolutely. And you couldn't be more correct. And I'm glad you referenced Canada as well, because the way they're developing, I know you have some experience there coaching as well. The way they're developing their athletes and the game of basketball has been great as of late. And I know it's going to continue to grow. And I'm happy to see that as well. And again, I am pro-America, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying, America has to be the best. I want Canada to have great basketball. I want Europe to continue to have great basketball. I want America to have great basketball. I don't have allegiance to one country or one team anymore. The overall body of basketball, I want to be great.
It's all good. It's great. I know. It's so fun to be a part of basketball. And I know you've traveled, I've traveled, and just beautiful how people love it. Did you come up with an answer? What would be one thing you'd bring from Europe if you could for
Limit the games that we're playing here in the United States. I think, because like you mentioned it earlier, it's just game on game. You're always just prepping for the next game. You're not really developing yourself. You're not really developing the team. It's all scouting. Like, scout against this team, scout against that, scout against this team. I think if we can just pull back just a little bit here in the United States with all the games that we're playing, and focus more on team concepts. I remember overseas, my players, when we went on a road trip, it was a bonding trip. Like, we went on the road, we would eat together, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We put our phones all in the middle. We connected. I think really just being connected. It was more connectivity over the less games, more connectivity, and just more brotherhood. It's brotherhood here. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying not to just say this one is better than the other, but in my personal experiences, I've seen those things. Like, I actually tried to bring that here. When I first came from Europe, I came to the G. Oh, and then I get a slap in the face, Chris. I got slapped in the face. Oh, we have to do it like this. We have to have 5-out spacing, and no, the big has to be in a dunker in the NBA. I said, no, forget the dunker. Everyone, we're more dynamic. I'm thinking the European mind. I said, no, he has to be in a dunker. Come up, set a screen, roll. That's it. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Oh, then we want to roll. I said, let's all go out to eat. He said, no, these are all grown men. We give them per diem, and then they go wherever they want to go. They know their curfew when they need to be in, and that's it. I'm like, when are we gonna bond? When are we gonna literally become one? You're so strong that one can beat. No, it's just everyone goes on their own and come in, be at practice, then wow. So I guess having more camaraderie, more team spirit at the professional level is something I would bring over as well.
two things stand out as you're saying that, and I agree. Practicing more leads to more cohesion as well. And you think about that, like really a lot of team cohesion is formed in practice. You get to compete against each other, you get to have fun with each other, you get to be safe with each other. All those things are fun. But the other part that kind of struck me as you were saying this is how much value there is to coaches to be able to have a safe space within a week where they don't have to worry about a game and they can just focus on player development and coach development and team development and those things. Because I know this has been referenced to you and been referenced to me many times that many coaches feel like all they're doing is preparing for games constantly and there's no practice.
Exactly. And I'm a process guy. I love the process. I love putting the ingredients in the cake, add the sugar, add the flour, add this coloring, whatever. I love that process. And then I always say at the end of the week, okay, now let's see how good this cake looks, how good the product we put on the floor. So I think practice is so valuable, right? It's so important to, like you said, player development, team development, and then also just is understanding each other. That's where the chemistry comes in, right? That's where the feel comes in. That's where the I know what he's going to do before he even does it comes in, and that's where you can really excel and have good basketball on the court. It's just a good product on the court, rather than guys being tired or just thinking about more tactical things game to game.
You referenced mindset before, and I want to come back to that because we've gone around team psychology, individual psychology, mindset, and I think this is one of the important pieces as well. Is maybe give us an idea of what separates some of the elite players in terms of their mindsets. Obviously, the skill, the athletic ability, the genetics, the talent that goes with that, but talk to us specifically more about the mindset.
That's one example that I have. You see all the Cavalier jerseys here behind me. I had the privilege and the honor to be in the gym with a guy by the name of LeBron James for 2 years when I was actually in the NBA G League with the Cleveland Cavaliers G League affiliate. The way they did it was great. The first 2 months of the preseason, you're with the Cavs, and then you go play your 50-game G League season, and then you'll come back for the playoffs and be with the Cavs. So I spent two preseasons and two postseasons with one of the best to ever do it as far as mindset. This is not a name drop, literally in the room with him. So I actually saw this on a daily basis, and his mindset. I don't. So there's other NBA players that have the same body as LeBron, some of the same skill set, maybe shoot better, but they don't have the mindset he had. You see the one example I always use about LeBron, one of my first years in the league, is when we played the Toronto Raptors on a Tuesday night. We had a Wednesday morning practice because we had a Thursday game. So not a lot of days off in the NBA. So we get back late. Toronto's not too far from Cleveland. So we get back late, maybe drive home. You're home by 1 a.m. We had a coaches meeting at 10 a.m. because practice is at 12. So we had a coaches meeting at 10 a.m. I like to be there an hour early, so I get there at 9 so I can prepare myself as well. And I live an hour away, so I drove from Canton, Ohio to Cleveland, get there at 9, and the music's blaring in the gym. I'm like, it's like we just got in at 1 a.m. Practice isn't until noon. Why is the music blaring in the gym? So I walk from my little cubicle and I go over to the gym and I see LeBron in there on his second workout because he already lifted from 8 to 9. He shot from 9 to 10. Then he did his old check, whatever, get his body, eat breakfast, and then came on the court and practiced at 12. And we practiced from 12 to 2. And then the young players, the non-elite players were walking off the court. And LeBron like, hey, where are you going? Come get your extra shots up. And I'm just like, wait, you were the first one here. You went through a whole team practice. And now you want to get extra shots up and you're making sure everyone else is doing the same thing as well. I'm like, holy smoke. And just seeing that made me a better coach, better human. I'm like, wait, hold on. This is a different level. This is literally a different level. And this is why he's still playing the level he is right now. And his mindset, right? His mindset is get in and do the work. And then I thought, okay, maybe this is just the preseason, maybe just early in the season. It was the next day, Chris. The next day, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. So it's the reason why we went to 4 or 5 straight finals against the Warriors during that era because we had a guy with that elite mindset. And then you have guys, like I said, with the same body as LeBron, who it's funny. I'm not going to name. I hate mentioning names. So I had another athlete who, contrary to what LeBron did, I was working with him individually. He came to the court. His workout was pre-practice workout was at 11 o'clock. 10:58, Chris. He takes a bite of a Kind bar, puts it next to the court. Okay, coach, I'm ready. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. We have a chef over there cooking breakfast all morning for the last 2-3 hours, and you come in here 2 minutes before the workout, take one bite of a Kind bar, and then you try to be the first one out, last one in, first one out, rather than first one in, last one out. That's just a different mindset that some players have. Same body, same skill set, but it's the mindset is really important.
And do you feel like that can be taught or shaped in some way for some of these younger players that you're dealing with?
I think if they're around players like that, they're around coaches that can show them consistency, that can show them what it looks like, I think that can rub off a little bit. Some is nurture versus nature, this whole story as well. Some people are not naturally that way. Some people have to be nurtured into it. And I think some can be. I'm positive. Have you seen, as you can see right now? Now I'm sure a lot of players can be nurtured into having that mindset, that professionalism as well.
Sam, this has been so fun to get to know you and to get to have you share with so many coaches here on the podcast. And maybe give us an idea. What are some of the future possibilities for Sam Jones?
For me in particular, hopefully I can stay in this space right here, Chris. I think with my experiences internationally, NBA and NCAA, Division One basketball, I think I'm in my sweet spot, right? I'm in a place with a great brand in Nike and able to work with the best players in the world, dare I say, and mentor them and share all my experiences that I've had internationally in the NBA and NCAA. I'm right where I want to be. So hopefully I can continue this for a long time. Like I said, when I'm talking to these players, I have Kendrick Perkins stories, personal story. I have Quinn Cook stories. I have a European basketball story. All the levels that they want to be or will be, I have stories for these athletes, and I love sharing them and I love developing them. Also with the coaches as well. So hopefully I can stay in this space here for the future as well.
We hope so too. And yeah, you're a great resource for those players and those coaches. And now you're a great resource for all of our listeners as well. So, Sam, thanks so much for connecting with us and sharing the game.
You're the man. Thanks, Chris.